Okay, so question 9. The box and whisker diagram summarise the birth rates per 1,000 people for all the countries in 3 of the regions as given in the pre-release dataset. They were drawn as part of an investigation comparing birth rates in different regions of the world. So we have Africa, Sub-Saharan, East and Southeast Asia, and the Caribbean. Discuss the distributions of birth rates in these regions of the world. Make 3 different statements. You should refer to both information from the box and whisker diagram and your knowledge of the large data set. Okay, so straight away, let's get into a comparison. I think we'll go for the spread first. Looking at the spreads, East and South Asia have the largest spread. I'm just looking at the box, which represents the interquartile range. So East and South Africa have the largest interquartile range. The reason I've gone for that rather than the actual range is because the range may well contain outliers. You could equally make a comment about that, just be careful to mention the outliers. Okay, so 2 comments that really are talking about the same thing. They're talking about the spread. The first one, we straight away went into the interquartile range, which already eliminates outliers. The second one, we refer to the range, and we mention the outliers and what impact it might have on the interquartile range. Be careful to just use one of these. The 2 of them are overlapping, so it won't be worth 2 marks. It will just be 1 mark for either of these. Okay, so what else can we comment on? We know that in the large data set, we saw that the incomes of sub-Saharan African countries were very varied, so there was a mixed range of those incomes. So we can talk about that and why we have such a large interquartile range. We could also make the same comment about the Caribbean and talk about how they were actually quite close together, and that's why they have such a small interquartile range. Okay, so the African sub-Saharan countries had a very varied mix of rich and poor countries, which may have resulted in a high interquartile range when it comes to those birth rates. While the Caribbean countries were very similar in their economic makeup, and this may have resulted in a lower interquartile range. Once again, these are making the same point, but it's which bit of data do we want to focus on. Try to avoid making both of these points. It will potentially only be worth the 1 mark. Okay, and finally, we can just talk about maybe the life expectancy in East and Southeast Asia, that since they have a much longer life expectancy, a larger proportion of the population are not having children. So the birth rate per 1,000 will be reduced from the fact that there's lots of elderly people in that country. And finally, the life expectancy in the countries of East and South Asia tend to be higher than countries in sub-Saharan Africa, which makes a large proportion of their population elderly. And they are also less likely to contribute to the birth rates, which in turn reduces the birth rates. Okay, so once again, be careful not to make the same point twice. In a maths exam, in a statistics question, you won't get credit for the both of them. You'll get credit for each distinct relevant comment that you make. The 3 marks will not be awarded if you haven't made reference to the large data set. So just anything that you can recall from working with the large data set, bring it in, and that will get you the marks for this question.